Far beneath the surface of warm tropical oceans, coral reefs form some of the most intricate and quietly vibrant environments on Earth. At first glance, these underwater landscapes appear almost like submerged gardens, filled with delicate shapes, soft movement, and subtle color. Yet coral reefs are not plants or stones. They are living communities, built slowly over centuries by countless tiny marine animals working together. Corals themselves are small organisms known as polyps. Each polyp is a soft-bodied creature, only a few millimeters across, shaped somewhat like a tiny cylinder with a ring of fine tentacles surrounding its mouth. These animals attach themselves to hard surfaces beneath the sea and begin to build protective skeletons made of calcium carbonate. Over time, as new polyps grow and older ones leave their mineral structures behind, the reef slowly rises and expands. The process is gradual and patient. A single coral colony may grow only a few centimeters each year. Yet over generations, these steady additions create vast reef systems that stretch across miles of ocean floor. Some coral reefs visible today began forming thousands of years ago, layer upon layer accumulating in quiet persistence. Within these structures, life gathers in remarkable diversity. Small fish weave through narrow coral branches, while sea stars and crabs move slowly across the reef surface. Gentle ocean currents bring nutrients, plankton, and oxygen, sustaining a complex web of organisms that depend on one another for survival. Coral reefs also exist in close partnership with microscopic algae known as zooxanthellae. These tiny algae live inside the tissues of coral polyps, using sunlight to produce energy through photosynthesis. In return, they provide nutrients that help the coral grow and build its skeleton. This quiet exchange between animal and algae forms one of the most important relationships in marine biology. Because reefs rely on clear, sunlit water, they are most often found in shallow tropical seas. There, sunlight filters down through the surface, illuminating coral formations in gentle waves of shifting light. To observe a coral reef is to witness a living structure slowly shaped by countless small organisms. With patience and cooperation, these tiny builders create environments that support thousands of species, forming one of the most delicate and fascinating ecosystems in the ocean. Coral reefs may appear solid and permanent, yet they are constantly growing, changing, and reshaping themselves through slow biological processes. Each tiny coral polyp plays a small role in building the reef structure, quietly depositing minerals that gradually form the hard skeleton beneath the living surface. This skeleton is made primarily of calcium carbonate, the same substance found in limestone and seashells. As coral polyps grow, they extract calcium and carbonate ions from the surrounding seawater. These materials combine to form a rigid framework that protects the delicate animal while also supporting the colony as it expands outward. When new polyps develop through budding, they remain attached to the original organism, forming clusters that share nutrients and energy. In this way, a coral colony behaves almost like a living city of tiny animals, each connected to the others through thin layers of tissue. The uppermost layer remains alive and active, while the skeleton beneath records the colony's slow history of growth. Ocean currents play a quiet but essential role in this process. Gentle water movement delivers oxygen and microscopic food particles to the coral's tentacles. At the same time, currents carry away waste and prevent sediment from settling on the reef's surface. In clear tropical seas where water flows steadily but calmly, coral colonies are able to thrive. The reef structure itself gradually becomes more complex as different coral species grow side by side. Some corals form branching shapes that resemble underwater trees. Others grow in smooth domes or wide, layered plates that extend outward like delicate shelves. Each shape interacts differently with sunlight and water flow, creating a variety of small habitats within the reef. Over long periods of time, broken coral fragments also contribute to reef formation. Storms, waves, and grazing fish may break pieces from older coral colonies. These fragments settle onto the seabed, where they slowly become cemented together by natural processes involving algae and other reef organisms. Through these steady cycles of growth, breakage, and renewal, coral reefs evolve into intricate underwater landscapes. What appears to be a single structure is actually a constantly developing environment, shaped by the patient work of millions of tiny animals and the quiet movement of the sea. Within the quiet structure of a coral reef, an extraordinary variety of marine life finds shelter, food, and space to grow. Although coral reefs occupy only a small portion of the ocean floor, they support an immense concentration of biodiversity. In these carefully balanced environments, thousands of species live in close proximity, each contributing to the slow and steady rhythm of reef life. Small reef fish are among the most visible inhabitants. Species such as damselfish, butterfly fish, and wrasses move gently through the coral branches, searching for plankton or tiny invertebrates. Their movements are often calm and deliberate, weaving between coral formations that provide protection from larger predators. The complex shapes of the reef create countless small spaces where fish can rest, hide, and raise their young. Crustaceans also play an important role in reef ecosystems. Crabs, shrimp, and lobsters move quietly across coral surfaces and within hidden crevices. Many of these animals help keep the reef clean by feeding on algae or organic debris. This quiet maintenance helps prevent excessive growth of algae that might otherwise smother the delicate coral polyps. Sea stars, sea cucumbers, and sea urchins move slowly along the reef floor, interacting with the environment in different ways. Sea cucumbers process sediment on the seabed, filtering organic material from the sand. Sea urchins graze on algae growing on hard surfaces, helping maintain a balance between coral growth and plant life. Above the reef, plankton drifts through the water column. These microscopic organisms form the foundation of the marine food web. Many reef fish feed on plankton carried by ocean currents, while coral polyps themselves extend their tiny tentacles to capture these drifting particles. The reef environment is shaped by cooperation as much as competition. Some fish species clean parasites from the bodies of larger fish, forming temporary partnerships that benefit both animals. Others defend small territories within the reef, ensuring access to food and shelter. Through these quiet interactions, coral reefs become living networks of relationships. Each species occupies its own small role within the ecosystem, contributing to a balanced environment that has developed gradually over thousands of years beneath the calm surface of tropical seas. One of the most important relationships within coral reefs exists at a scale too small to see easily with the human eye. Inside the soft tissues of coral polyps live microscopic algae known as zooxanthellae. These tiny organisms form a close and essential partnership with coral, quietly supporting the growth of the reef through a process that depends on sunlight and gentle chemical exchange. Zooxanthellae perform photosynthesis, the same process used by plants on land. Using sunlight, carbon dioxide, and nutrients dissolved in seawater, the algae produce sugars and oxygen. A large portion of this energy is shared with the coral host, providing the fuel needed for growth, reproduction, and the construction of calcium carbonate skeletons. In return, the coral provides a stable home for the algae within its tissues. The coral also releases waste products that the algae use as nutrients. Through this quiet exchange, both organisms benefit. Scientists describe this type of relationship as symbiosis, meaning two different species living closely together in a mutually supportive way. This partnership also helps explain why coral reefs are typically found in clear, shallow water. Sunlight must be able to penetrate the ocean surface and reach the algae living within the coral. In deeper or murkier waters where sunlight fades, this delicate balance becomes more difficult to maintain. The presence of zooxanthellae also gives many coral species their soft, natural colors. The algae contain pigments that reflect shades of brown, green, and golden tones, blending with the coral's own tissues to create the warm hues often seen across reef landscapes. When conditions remain stable, the relationship between coral and algae continues quietly for many years. Coral colonies grow slowly, adding thin layers to the reef structure while the algae continue their steady work of converting sunlight into energy. This gentle biological cooperation forms the foundation of coral reef ecosystems. Without the partnership between coral polyps and their microscopic algae, the large reef structures that support so many marine species would not be able to develop or endure in the calm, sunlit waters of tropical oceans. Coral reefs are often described as underwater cities, not only because of the many creatures that live among them, but also because of the intricate structures they create. Over time, different types of coral grow in distinctive shapes, forming a wide variety of habitats that support marine life in different ways. Some coral species grow upward in delicate branches that resemble small underwater trees. These branching corals provide narrow spaces where small fish can move quickly between the arms of the reef. The structure offers protection from larger predators while also allowing water currents to pass through, bringing a steady flow of nutrients and oxygen. Other corals grow in rounded dome shapes that rise gently from the seafloor. These formations, sometimes called massive corals, grow very slowly but can become quite large over many decades. Their solid surfaces provide stable platforms where other reef organisms, such as sponges and small invertebrates, can attach and grow. A third common form is the plate or table coral, which grows outward in broad horizontal layers. These thin shelves extend into the surrounding water, capturing sunlight for the algae living inside the coral tissues. The wide surfaces also create shaded spaces beneath them, offering shelter for fish and small marine animals that prefer lower light conditions. Together, these different coral shapes create a complex three-dimensional environment. Small caves, ledges, tunnels, and open channels form naturally as coral colonies grow side by side. Fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and countless other species use these spaces in different ways throughout their lives. Ocean currents move gently through these coral formations, carrying plankton and other nutrients that support the reef community. At the same time, the reef structure slows the movement of water near the seafloor, helping to create calm microenvironments where delicate organisms can survive. Over long periods of time, the reef continues to change. New coral colonies settle and grow, older ones break apart, and fragments slowly become part of the reef foundation. Through these quiet cycles of growth and renewal, coral reefs maintain their remarkable diversity and stability beneath the calm surface of the ocean. Coral reefs exist within a delicate balance of environmental conditions. Although they appear strong and enduring, the organisms that build these reefs depend on a narrow range of temperature, light, and water clarity. When these conditions remain stable, coral colonies can grow slowly and steadily for many generations. Warm water is one of the most important factors supporting reef development. Most reef-building corals thrive in ocean temperatures between about 23 and 29 degrees Celsius. In these tropical waters, biological processes within coral polyps and their symbiotic algae operate efficiently, allowing energy to flow smoothly through the reef ecosystem. Sunlight also plays a quiet but essential role. Because the algae living within coral tissues rely on photosynthesis, reefs are typically found in shallow water where sunlight can easily penetrate the ocean surface. Clear water allows this light to reach the coral colonies below, creating an environment where energy from the sun supports both coral growth and the wider marine community. Water clarity is influenced by the amount of sediment suspended in the ocean. Rivers, storms, and coastal changes can introduce particles that cloud the water. When too much sediment settles on coral surfaces, it can block sunlight and make it difficult for coral polyps to extend their tentacles for feeding. For this reason, many of the world's most extensive reefs are located far from large river systems, where ocean water remains relatively clear. Ocean currents contribute quietly to reef stability as well. Gentle currents deliver nutrients and oxygen while removing waste products from the reef surface. These steady flows also help distribute plankton, providing an additional source of food for coral polyps and reef fish. Even small variations in these conditions can influence how reefs develop. Slight changes in water temperature, sunlight levels, or current patterns may affect how quickly coral grows or which species become most common in a particular area. Through careful observation of these environmental factors, marine biologists continue to learn how coral reefs function. By studying the balance between coral organisms and their surroundings, scientists gain insight into the natural processes that have shaped reef ecosystems for thousands of years beneath the calm surface of tropical seas. Although coral reefs are often admired for their beauty and complexity, they also serve important ecological roles within the wider ocean environment. These living structures act as natural habitats, protective barriers, and sources of nourishment for many marine organisms, quietly supporting ocean life in ways that extend far beyond the reef itself. One of the most significant roles of coral reefs is providing shelter. The intricate shapes created by coral colonies form countless small spaces where fish and invertebrates can hide from predators. Young fish, in particular, rely on these protected areas during the earliest stages of life. Within the narrow channels and shaded crevices of the reef, they can grow gradually while remaining partially hidden from larger hunters. Reefs also function as feeding grounds. Many marine animals travel to reef environments because of the abundance of food available there. Plankton drifting through ocean currents becomes nourishment for coral polyps, small fish, and filter-feeding organisms such as sponges. Larger fish arrive to feed on smaller species, creating a balanced food web that connects many levels of marine life. In addition to supporting biodiversity, coral reefs help protect coastlines. When ocean waves move toward land, reef structures act as natural barriers that absorb and reduce the force of the water. The rough surfaces of coral formations slow the movement of waves, allowing them to break gently before reaching the shore. This process helps reduce coastal erosion and protects beaches, lagoons, and nearby habitats. Over long periods of time, coral reefs also contribute to the formation of islands and sandy shorelines. As coral skeletons break down through natural weathering and biological activity, the fragments gradually become fine sand. Ocean currents then carry this sand toward shallow coastal areas where it may settle along beaches or within lagoons. Marine biologists study these ecological functions carefully. By observing how reefs interact with surrounding ocean environments, scientists gain a clearer understanding of the many ways coral ecosystems support life both within and beyond the reef itself. Through these quiet processes of shelter, feeding, and protection, coral reefs serve as steady foundations within tropical seas, shaping the surrounding ocean landscape while sustaining a remarkable diversity of marine life. Coral reefs are not isolated structures within the ocean. Instead, they exist as part of larger marine systems that include nearby seagrass meadows, mangrove forests, and open ocean waters. These environments are quietly connected through the movement of animals, nutrients, and water currents, forming a broader network of life across tropical coastlines. Mangrove forests often grow along sheltered shorelines where land meets the sea. Their tangled root systems extend down into shallow coastal waters, creating calm areas where sediment settles and young marine animals can find protection. Many species of fish begin their lives among these roots, where the dense structure offers safety from larger predators. As these young fish grow, they gradually leave the mangroves and move outward into nearby coral reefs. There they find new sources of food and more complex habitats. In this way, mangrove forests act as important nursery environments, quietly supporting the populations of fish that later become part of reef communities. Seagrass meadows provide another link in this connected system. These underwater plants grow across shallow sandy areas between mangroves and coral reefs. Their long, flexible leaves slow ocean currents and help stabilize the seabed. Small fish, sea turtles, and grazing animals feed within these meadows, while other species pass through as they travel between different habitats. Nutrients also move through these coastal systems. Organic material from mangroves and seagrasses can drift toward reefs, providing additional nourishment for marine organisms. In return, reef environments contribute to the wider ocean food web by supporting large populations of fish and invertebrates that travel between these connected habitats. Marine biologists often study these environments together rather than separately. By observing how species move between mangroves, seagrasses, and coral reefs, scientists gain a clearer understanding of how tropical marine ecosystems function as integrated systems rather than isolated locations. When viewed in this broader context, coral reefs become part of a larger coastal landscape shaped by quiet biological exchanges. The steady movement of life between these environments allows marine communities to grow, adapt, and sustain themselves across the calm, sunlit waters of tropical seas. The formation of a coral reef begins with an event so small that it is rarely seen. In calm ocean waters, coral colonies reproduce by releasing tiny larvae that drift freely through the sea. These microscopic organisms, carried gently by currents, represent the earliest stage in the long process of reef creation. Many coral species reproduce through a remarkable event known as spawning. At certain times of the year, often guided by subtle changes in temperature, daylight, and lunar cycles, coral colonies release eggs and sperm into the surrounding water. These reproductive cells rise slowly toward the ocean surface, where fertilization occurs and new larvae begin to form. Once developed, these larvae drift through the open water for days or sometimes weeks. During this period they are carried by ocean currents, moving quietly across the sea in search of suitable places to settle. Although most larvae never find an ideal location, those that do become the foundation for new coral colonies. When conditions are favorable, a larva attaches itself to a solid surface on the ocean floor. This may be a piece of rock, an older coral skeleton, or another stable structure within the reef environment. Once attached, the larva transforms into a small coral polyp and begins the slow process of building its calcium carbonate skeleton. From this single starting point, the colony begins to grow. The original polyp reproduces by budding, creating identical polyps that remain connected to one another. Gradually, a small cluster forms, and over time the colony expands outward across the available surface. The pace of this growth is quiet and steady. Year after year, thin layers of calcium carbonate accumulate beneath the living tissue of the coral. As new generations of polyps develop, they continue adding to the structure, slowly raising the reef above the surrounding seabed. Through these delicate beginnings, vast coral formations eventually emerge. What begins as a drifting larva no larger than a grain of sand can, over many decades or centuries, contribute to reef systems that support thousands of marine species. The quiet process of coral settlement reminds us that even the smallest beginnings can shape the living landscapes of the ocean. Coral reefs are not only shaped by coral itself. A wide variety of other organisms quietly contribute to the structure and stability of the reef over time. Among the most important of these are reef-building algae, small creatures that grow across coral surfaces and help bind the reef together. One of the most significant contributors is a group known as coralline algae. Unlike the soft seaweeds that drift in ocean currents, coralline algae produce hard skeletons made of calcium carbonate, much like coral does. These algae grow as thin layers across rocks, coral fragments, and older reef surfaces. Their presence helps strengthen the reef by cementing loose pieces together. Over time, coralline algae form a kind of natural adhesive within the reef ecosystem. Broken coral branches, shells, and fragments that might otherwise shift with currents become gradually fixed in place. As more layers of algae grow, the reef structure becomes increasingly stable. Sponges also play a quiet role in reef environments. Many sponge species live attached to coral surfaces or within hidden reef crevices. They filter enormous volumes of seawater each day, removing tiny particles of organic material and bacteria. Through this process, sponges help recycle nutrients within the reef ecosystem, supporting other marine life in subtle ways. Another group of reef builders includes small organisms known as bryozoans. These colonial animals form delicate mineral skeletons that grow across reef surfaces. Although they are rarely noticed, their slow accumulation contributes additional layers to the reef structure. Even the actions of certain fish influence reef development. Parrotfish, for example, graze on algae growing across coral surfaces. As they feed, they scrape away small amounts of coral skeleton along with the algae. The material passes through their digestive systems and is later released as fine sand that settles along the seabed. Through the quiet work of algae, sponges, small invertebrates, and reef fish, coral ecosystems become more than simple coral structures. They develop into complex frameworks where many organisms contribute to the slow shaping of the reef. Marine biologists often describe reefs as living construction projects, built not by one species alone, but through the steady cooperation of many small organisms working together beneath the calm waters of tropical oceans. Although coral reefs are often thought of as bright, sunlit environments, they also experience a quiet rhythm that follows the cycle of day and night. As sunlight fades and darkness settles over the ocean, many reef organisms begin behaviors that are rarely seen during daylight hours. During the day, many reef fish remain active among coral formations, searching for plankton or small invertebrates. Their movements are often gentle and deliberate, weaving through coral branches and sheltered spaces. When evening arrives, however, the reef gradually becomes calmer as many daytime fish move into protective crevices where they rest through the night. As these daytime species become still, other creatures slowly emerge. Nocturnal animals begin their activities beneath the dim light filtering down from the moonlit surface. Crabs and lobsters step cautiously from hidden shelters, exploring the reef floor in search of food. Their movements are careful and unhurried, guided by touch and chemical signals in the water rather than sight alone. Certain coral polyps also change their behavior at night. During daylight hours, many polyps remain partially withdrawn while their symbiotic algae produce energy through photosynthesis. After sunset, however, the polyps often extend their delicate tentacles further into the surrounding water. In the calmer nighttime currents, they capture drifting plankton and microscopic organisms that provide additional nourishment. Other reef animals take advantage of this quiet period to feed. Small nocturnal fish move slowly through the coral landscape, while sea urchins graze across reef surfaces, feeding on algae that grow on the coral skeletons. The nighttime reef environment often appears calmer and more mysterious than its daytime counterpart. Light fades into deep blue tones, and the movement of animals becomes slower and more deliberate. Marine biologists sometimes study reefs after dark to better understand these patterns of activity. By observing how species alternate between daytime and nighttime behaviors, scientists gain insight into how reef ecosystems remain balanced throughout the continuous cycle of the ocean day. Through these gentle rhythms, coral reefs remain active at all hours, sustained by the quiet movements of countless organisms beneath the surface of the sea. The formation of a coral reef is an extremely gradual process that unfolds over long stretches of time. While a single coral colony may grow only a few millimeters each year, the combined activity of thousands of colonies slowly builds large reef structures that can extend for many kilometers across the ocean floor. The process often begins with a stable surface beneath the water. This may be volcanic rock, an ancient reef structure, or a submerged ridge where coral larvae are able to settle. When these tiny drifting larvae attach themselves to the hard surface, they begin to develop into small coral polyps. Each polyp begins secreting a skeleton of calcium carbonate beneath its soft body. Over time, this mineral skeleton expands outward and upward as the colony grows. New polyps form by budding from the original polyp, creating clusters that gradually spread across the rock surface. As generations of coral grow and die, their skeletons remain behind as part of the reef structure. New coral colonies settle upon these older layers, slowly adding additional height and thickness to the reef over many decades and centuries. Storms and ocean currents occasionally break pieces of coral away from the reef. While this may appear destructive, it often contributes to reef growth. Broken fragments may settle nearby and begin forming new colonies if conditions remain favorable. Sand and sediment also play a role in shaping the reef environment. Waves and currents carry fine particles that settle into small gaps between coral structures. Over time, these materials help stabilize sections of the reef while creating shallow lagoons and sandy channels. Marine biologists often describe coral reefs as living geological formations. Unlike mountains or cliffs formed only by physical forces, reefs grow through the steady biological activity of countless tiny organisms working over long periods. This gradual construction continues quietly beneath the ocean surface. Layer by layer, coral colonies add their mineral structures to the reef, forming habitats that support an extraordinary variety of marine life. The result is a complex underwater landscape that reflects centuries of slow growth, careful balance, and the steady rhythm of life in tropical seas. Coral reefs support one of the most diverse collections of life found anywhere in the ocean. Within a relatively small area, thousands of species may live together, forming complex relationships that allow the ecosystem to remain balanced over long periods of time. Marine biologists often describe reefs as underwater communities where many organisms quietly depend on one another. Fish are among the most visible inhabitants of reef environments. Brightly colored species move slowly between coral branches, searching for food or shelter. Some feed on plankton drifting in the currents, while others graze gently on algae growing across the reef surface. Their movements are constant but unhurried, weaving through the coral structures that provide protection from larger predators. Many smaller animals live within spaces that are difficult to see at first glance. Tiny shrimp and crabs occupy narrow crevices inside coral formations. Sea stars move gradually across the reef floor, while sea cucumbers quietly process sand and organic material along the seabed. These organisms contribute to the recycling of nutrients that help sustain the reef. Some species form particularly close partnerships. Certain fish, such as cleaner wrasses, gently remove parasites from the bodies of larger fish that pause nearby. This interaction benefits both animals. The cleaner fish receive food, while the larger fish remain healthier as parasites are removed. Soft corals, sea fans, and anemones also add to the diversity of reef life. Their flexible bodies sway slowly with the ocean currents, filtering small particles from the water. These organisms create additional shelter for fish and invertebrates, increasing the complexity of the reef habitat. Because coral reefs contain so many interacting species, even small changes can influence the entire system. Marine scientists study these relationships carefully, observing how different animals contribute to the balance of the ecosystem. Within the calm water surrounding a reef, countless small interactions unfold each day. Fish feed, invertebrates move slowly through the coral landscape, and currents carry nutrients through the reef. Together, these quiet processes sustain one of the most intricate ecosystems found in the natural world. The movement of ocean water plays a quiet but essential role in the life of coral reefs. Currents carry nutrients, oxygen, and microscopic organisms through the reef environment, allowing many species to survive and grow within these underwater ecosystems. Even gentle currents influence how coral reefs develop. As water moves slowly across the reef surface, it delivers plankton and other small particles that many reef organisms use as food. Coral polyps extend their tiny tentacles into the passing water, capturing drifting organisms that provide an additional source of nourishment alongside the energy produced by their symbiotic algae. Currents also help maintain water clarity. By carrying away excess sediment and organic material, flowing water prevents fine particles from settling on coral surfaces. When sediment accumulates heavily, it can block sunlight and interfere with the delicate balance between coral polyps and the algae living inside them. Steady water movement helps prevent this buildup. Temperature within reef environments is also influenced by the circulation of ocean water. Large-scale ocean currents distribute warm tropical water across different regions of the sea, creating conditions suitable for reef development. Coral reefs typically thrive in water that remains within a relatively narrow temperature range. Wave action near the ocean surface contributes additional movement. As waves pass over shallow reefs, they create a gentle surge that flows through coral structures. This movement brings fresh oxygen into reef habitats while carrying away waste produced by marine organisms. Marine biologists studying reef environments often pay close attention to these patterns of water movement. Instruments placed on the seafloor record the speed and direction of currents, allowing scientists to understand how water circulation supports reef ecosystems. Although currents may appear subtle from above the water's surface, their influence within the reef is continuous. Water flows steadily through coral formations, connecting different parts of the ecosystem and supporting the countless organisms that depend on these living structures. Through this constant movement, the ocean quietly sustains coral reefs, maintaining the balance that allows these remarkable ecosystems to endure over time. Coral reefs are shaped not only by the organisms that live within them, but also by the slow influence of surrounding environmental conditions. Temperature, sunlight, water clarity, and ocean chemistry all contribute to the delicate balance that allows reefs to grow and persist over long periods of time. Sunlight is one of the most important factors in reef development. Because coral polyps contain symbiotic algae that rely on photosynthesis, reefs are most commonly found in shallow tropical waters where sunlight can easily reach the ocean floor. Clear water allows light to travel deeper, supporting coral growth across wide reef platforms. Water temperature also plays a steady role in coral health. Most reef-building corals thrive in relatively warm conditions, typically within a narrow temperature range found in tropical seas. When temperatures remain stable, coral polyps and their symbiotic algae maintain a balanced partnership that supports steady growth. Ocean chemistry influences reef formation as well. Coral skeletons are built from calcium carbonate, a mineral that forms naturally within seawater. When the chemical balance of the water supports this process, corals are able to deposit their skeletons gradually, building the framework that supports reef ecosystems. Storms and seasonal weather patterns occasionally reshape reef landscapes. Strong waves may break coral branches or shift sand across reef flats. Yet these events can also create new surfaces where coral larvae later settle and grow. Over long stretches of time, reefs adjust to these changing conditions through slow cycles of damage and renewal. Marine scientists often observe reef environments over many years in order to understand these environmental influences. By measuring temperature, water clarity, and chemical composition, researchers gain insight into how coral reefs respond to natural variation in the ocean. Within tropical seas, these environmental conditions work quietly together. Sunlight filters through clear water, warm temperatures support coral growth, and mineral-rich seawater provides the materials needed to build reef structures. Through this steady combination of natural forces, coral reefs continue their slow development beneath the surface of the ocean. Across the warm oceans of the world, coral reefs continue their quiet and gradual growth. Beneath calm tropical waters, countless small organisms participate in a process that unfolds slowly over many generations. Polyps build their delicate skeletons, algae provide energy through sunlight, and surrounding marine life contributes to the steady shaping of the reef environment. Although individual coral colonies may appear fragile, their combined activity forms structures that endure for centuries. Layer by layer, new growth settles upon older coral skeletons, creating wide reef platforms, branching coral gardens, and sheltered lagoons. Each part of the reef reflects the patient work of living organisms responding to the rhythms of the sea. Within these structures, an enormous diversity of marine life finds shelter. Fish move quietly among coral branches, invertebrates occupy narrow crevices, and algae spread across reef surfaces in thin, colorful layers. Every organism participates in small but meaningful interactions that support the larger ecosystem. Marine biologists studying coral reefs often emphasize this sense of gradual cooperation. Rather than being shaped by a single force, reefs develop through the steady balance of many biological and environmental processes. Sunlight, currents, minerals, and living organisms all contribute to the slow construction of these underwater landscapes. Over long periods of time, coral reefs become some of the most intricate habitats found in the ocean. Their structures support life at many different scales, from microscopic plankton drifting in the water to larger fish that travel along the reef edges. The ecosystem remains active at all hours, quietly sustained by cycles of feeding, growth, and renewal. Observing coral reefs can inspire a sense of calm reflection. Their growth reminds us that complex natural systems often develop through patient accumulation rather than sudden change. The reef expands gently, shaped by small actions repeated countless times beneath the ocean surface. In this way, coral reefs represent both resilience and continuity. Their quiet construction continues day after day, year after year, forming living structures that connect the rhythms of sunlight, water, and marine life across the tropical seas.